The Mutants of X-Men return in their second theatrical movie, which came out in 2003, making it now 21 years old. Good grief, where has the time gone? This time, the X-Men must team up with Magneto and his Brotherhood of Mutants after Professor Xavier is kidnapped by the sinister Stryker, a military scientist who plans to build his own version of Cerebro, so he can use it to track down and kill all mutants. Where during this earth-shattering adventure, Wolverine learns of shocking truths of his past, and Jean Grey has dramatic tensions of her future in this X-Men movie, which many claim to be the best X-Men movie. So it's time to return to the exciting, thought-provoking, and often haunting world of the cinematic X-Men movies, as we explore what is arguably the franchise at its peak, as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about X-Men 2. Now, I want to get on with it, you want to get on with it, so let's just get on with it and check it out. Number 10. The Empire Strikes Back of X-Men movies. So the first X-Men movie was released in the year 2000 and was successful, which prompted its distributor 20th Century Fox to immediately greenlight a sequel, to keep the success flowing. The first movie's director, the controversial and rumoured creep Bryan Singer, not saying he is, I wasn't there, just stories floating out there is all, and executive producer Tom DeSanto used The Empire Strikes Back for inspiration for the sequel. Well, I guess looking to what could be the greatest sequel of all time couldn't hurt. So in X-Men 2 we see characters separated and go through personal struggles, as well as shocking revelations. And yeah, when you think about it, structurally X-Men 2 does feel very similar to Empire Strikes Back. Heck, X-Men 2 even features icy cold environments just like Empire, and both movies end with the audience questioning the mortality of one of the major characters. In Empire, it's Han Solo. In X2, it's Jean Grey. Number 9. Two scripts merge into one. It seems that in the early days of production, Singer envisioned X-Men 2 to revolve around the Dark Phoenix saga. But scriptwriter Zak Penn convinced him not to go for such a far-out story so early on in the X-Men cinematic universe, and that more lore was needed to be created first. So the Dark Phoenix storyline was put on hold. Zak Penn, who would go on to write The Incredible Hulk for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and David Hayter, who also wrote the first movie and would also go on to write the Watchmen movie, both went away to write their own scripts of X-Men 2. To which, later down the track, the two writers decided to combine the best bits of both their scripts into one new script. And the dissecting of the script wasn't done yet, as Singer himself would then work to rewrite that script. And then Superman Returns scriptwriters Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris would also come along to do rewrites of that script. Needless to say, there was a lot of chefs in the kitchen, and it wasn't Chef Ramsay, but more Chef Hansy. Supposedly, don't know, once again, wasn't there. So it's kind of a miracle that X-Men 2 turned out to have such a well-constructed story, considering that it had an army of writers behind the scenes. Number 8. Inspiration from a classic X-Men comic. So as you can see, I'm a massive fan of X-Men. Not only do I have many of the classic comics, but also some action figures, and even this epic arcade machine. By the way, I love Wolverine's death cry in this game whenever he falls off a cliff in the jungle. No, seriously, he fully goes, "Wah!" Listen. See? So the big question is, with the Dark Phoenix saga being out of the picture with X-Men 2, what direction would X-Men 2 take? Well, X-Men 2 took inspiration from a 1982 X-Men graphic novel called X-Men: God Loves, Man Kills, which was written by Chris Claremont and illustrated by Brent Anderson. Like the movie, God Loves, Man Kills features Stryker, who kidnaps Professor Xavier and connects him to a telepathic machine, in which the X-Men have to team up with Magneto in order to save Xavier. This graphic novel was to originally showcase the death of Magneto, until the plot point was dropped. And for a while in the X-Men lore, this story wasn't even considered canon. In fact, it didn't get recognized as a legit X-Men storyline till the release of X-Men 2, 21 years after its publication. It is said that X2 also took some inspiration from the comic book storyline Return to Weapon X, which actually was a fairly new story at that time. Number 7. Deleted characters. So X-Men 2 sees the return of many memorable characters who we already met in the first movie, including Professor Xavier, played by Patrick Stewart, Rogue, played by Anna Paquin, Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, Magneto, played by Ian McKellen, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, Halle Berry as Storm, Rebecca Romijn as Mystique, Cyclops, played by James Marsden, as well as some new faces from the lore turning up on the big screen for the first time, including major X-Men player Nightcrawler, who was played by Alan Cumming, Stryker, played by Brian Cox, Aaron Stanford, who played Pyro, and Ice Dude, who was played by Shawn Ashmore, who was in the first movie but had a very limited part. However, several characters were written into the movie but then ultimately had to be cut due to there being too many characters, including Beast. Oh, poor Beast. He was meant to be in the first movie too, but got cut from that as well. However, his character can be seen in human form in a Blink and You'll Miss It TV interview, as well as the character Angel also being removed, who due to Stryker's experiments would have become Archangel, as well as the Sentinel robots, and the character Sabretooth, who was in the first movie, who was meant to return, but the character was replaced with the character Deathstrike, played by actress and former Miss Hawaii, Kelly Hu. So it may have been annoying to die-hard fans that many well-loved characters who were missing from the first movie still did not turn up for the sequel. But that's nothing compared to an entire elaborate set also being culled. Yes, even a grand epic set could not escape the X-Men 2 cull. Number 6. The Danger Room became the Deleted Room. So with many characters being cut from X-Men 2, another vital aspect was also removed, that being the Danger Room, which once again was an element that was meant to be used in the first movie but was cut from that too. Now, the Danger Room had to be cut from X-Men 2 due to budgetary reasons, despite the set already being built, with it then going into storage. Damn, imagine creating this big lavish set only for it not to be used and to go into storage. However, despite the fact that X2 had a lack of Danger Room, it actually did feature an increase of Storm, as the character this time was given more screen time, on the account of Halle Berry getting much acclaim at that time for starring in Monsters Ball. This is good, because I feel like she was really just a background character in the first movie, so it was great to see Storm get more involved. Sadly, Cyclops wouldn't be so lucky, but more on that later. Number 5. Alan Coming or Going. The shoot for X-Men 2 started in June 2002 and lasted till November of that year, with the filming taking place in Canada, namely Vancouver and Alberta. And Wikipedia offers a variety of interesting and downright random insights into the making of X-Men 2, and here are some of them. X-Men 2 features scenes of Professor X and Magneto playing chess, but neither actor knew how to actually play chess, so a Canadian chess grandmaster had to be brought onto the set to help with the game. Wow, all that fuss just to see these two guys play chess. For the location shoot at Alberta, at a lake well known for having heaps of snow, well, there just wasn't any snow, so a ton of fake snow would have to be brought onto the set in order to create the desired look. The scene where Pyro takes on the cops was actually really dangerous to film. So much so, during the filming of that scene, 2 stunt drivers and the movie cinematographer Newton Thomas Segal nearly died. During the making of X-Men 2, it was a tight-kept secret that X-Men 2 was to end with the death of Jean Grey and then her return in X-Men 3. So much so, Jean Grey actress Famke Janssen herself didn't even know until well into the shoot. However, during the making of X-Men 2, it seems that Nightcrawler actor Alan Cummings wasn't really happy, with him calling working on X-Men 2 as, quote, a bad experience, which is probably why the character didn't feature in the next movie. Now, supposedly Neil Patrick Harris auditioned for the part, but it was Cummings who got it. According to Wikipedia, an example of his displeasure of working on the movie was director Bryan Singer, on the account that he supposedly berated the cast, which, according to Cummings, led Harry Bailey to pretty much tell him to kiss her ass. Are these stories true? I don't know, I wasn't there. But regardless, it seems that Alan Cummings wasn't having a grand old time. Let's just say he wasn't going to be doing a jolly old knees up round the campfire. Nor do I think he would have been sending Bryan Singer any Christmas cards anytime soon. And just to finish off, in that segment at the start of the movie, where all the people seem to be frozen in the museum, well, some of those people who were standing still and seemingly frozen in time were actually played by mimes. Number 4, a change of music. The first X-Men movie was scored by the legendary composer Michael Kamen, and he did a terrific job making X-Men sound like a serious thriller with many audible delights. However, one thing I felt that original score was missing was a main theme. You know, that tune that hooks you in and automatically makes you think, yep, that's the X-Men. However, this time, the X-Men did get that required main theme, as composer John Ottman came on board to give an entirely new score for the X-Men, and thus creating that now iconic tune, which was subsequently going to be used in every X-Men movie since. The theme sounds rich and heroic, while never going camp, maintaining that this is a theme tune for a dark, serious world. Despite the fact that Michael Kamen didn't return for X-Men 2, exterior shots of Professor X's school did. No, seriously, the shots of the school was footage that was filmed for the first movie, and there just wasn't enough in the budget left to film new exterior shots. Which baffles me, it's like, come on, you guys are 20th Century Fox, how do you not have enough money to go and film some exterior scenes of this building? And the end scene featuring Xavier, Cyclops, and Wolverine wasn't filmed in Canada or any Fox studios, but rather Shepperton Studios in England, as Hugh Jackman was in England at the time filming Van Helsing. By the way, comment if you want an episode on that movie. So, rather than bringing Hugh Jackman to the production, they brought the production to Hugh Jackman. Yep, and that's a testament to his popularity in the 2000s. An entire movie's production revolved around him. Number 3, multiple titles. Okay, so X-Men 2 seems to be one of those movies that had multiple movie titles. Yep, it seems that the powers that be couldn't agree on a single title, so it had to go with multiple, as this sequel is often known as X-Men 2, X2, and X2 X-Men United. So, which is it? Is it X-Men 2, X2, or X2 X-Men United? Apparently, the subtitle of X-Men United was added to American and Canadian releases of the movie. Here in Australia, the movie has and always simply been X-Men 2, and I don't know why that couldn't be enough. I mean, it gets the point across, this is a sequel, and it's the second one. Did they really need the X-Men United subheading? I think this whole confusion over the movie simply being X-Men 2 or X2 X-Men United led to the third entry, the notorious X-Men Last Stand, to have no numbering system in its title. Although it could be argued that the Wolverine claws used in the movie's logo could be a Roman numeral 3, but that's a story for another time. So now I ask you guys, what is the movie called to you, and which do you think is the better title? X-Men 2, X2, or X2 X-Men United? Number 2, deleted scenes. So there are several scenes that were cut from X-Men 2. In the scene where Wolverine kills one of Stryker's soldiers during the home invasion, Wolverine gave a really fierce death scream while staring straight at the soldier as he dies. Well, this prompted X2 to get an R rating, and considering the production was striving for a PG rating, in the cinematic cut, during Wolverine's death scream, we cut back to the Bobby character watching. Seriously, such a random thing for the censors to get upset about. We see that one of the children that Storm and Nightcrawler saves from Stryker's facilities is Jubilee. Well, the character actually had an entire deleted sequence at the start of the movie, which takes place in the museum, where she discovers a display presentation explaining about mutants, making mutants look really grotesque and weird, where electrical currents can be seen emerging from her hands, while also being spotted by bystanders. Okay, how did this character get to have her scenes filmed and cut from both the first and second movie? There's a mysterious sequence where Jean Grey is flying the X-Jet, only for her to start sort of phasing out of concentration, which affects the ship's controls. Storm snaps her out of it. Jean explains that she's been feeling off lately. This is a curious scene, as it suggests that the Dark Phoenix was kind of already on its way and starting to take control of Jean Grey. Yes, Jean mentions at the start of the movie that she feels like she's losing control of her powers, but this makes it more apparent that something inside of her is awakening, rather than the Dark Phoenix awakening from Jean Grey's death, which is what I always took from that. There's a scene where Xavier manages to escape Stryker's Cerebro, where we follow him to the school for the gifted mutants, only to realise, no, he's actually still in Stryker's Cerebro. Kinda reminds me of 1408, when you think that John Cusack's character has escaped, only to find, nope, he's still in that room. There were said to be more scenes that were filmed that gave Cyclops more screen time, as he was pretty much a background character in the first movie, but his scenes were cut for timing purposes. Co-writer David Hayter spoke of this and felt that actor James Marsden deserved better. And as we all know, it gets worse in X-Men Last Stand, as he was barely in that movie, only turning up to then be killed off, on the account that James Marsden was starring as Richard White in Superman Returns at that time. Wow, this original sequence of X-Men movies really did Cyclops wrong, as in the comics he is a major character, but I feel that in those 3 movies we barely got to know him. There was also a cut scene which was to feature a cameo by the character Gambit, who was played by Hugh Jackman's stunt double, James Bamford, but this scene was cut too. I think the problem is, Wolverine was such a popular character and Hugh Jackman played him so well, and so because of that, a great deal of the focus was actually put on him, which probably did make other characters have to take a backseat, or in some cases be removed entirely. Number 1. United They Stand. X-Men 2 was released in April 2003 in the UK and March in the States, in which attending the movie's premiere was Hugh Jackman and his glorious Van Helsing hair. Seriously, look at those flowing locks. And it was very financially successful. It brought in nearly $408 million on a budget that sat somewhere between $110 to $125 million, with its box office intake ballooning over the first movie's earnings of $296 million, and it would become the 9th highest grossing movie of 2003. It even beat Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones as the highest opening weekend for a 20th Century Fox movie. And it enjoyed 2 weeks in the number 1 spot in the box office before being overtaken by The Matrix Reloaded. Incidentally, The Matrix Reloaded would make considerably more money than X-Men 2, which to me is disappointing, as I feel that X-Men 2 was the better movie by far and has definitely aged better, and it's equally interesting that both movies are second entry sequels. X-Men 2 also got rave reviews from critics, with the story and acting being praised, with it generally being felt that X-Men 2 was bigger, better, and more ambitious than its predecessor, and really just an all-out better movie. I can remember at the time talking to other fans who also watched it, with them saying they can't wait to see the next movie, and they just needed to know, will Jean Grey return? Is she really dead? Which to me brings back the Empire Strikes Back element, as it reminds me of hearing stories about people just dying to know what happened to Han Solo when that movie came out. Seriously, fans at that time really wanted that next X-Men movie to come out as quickly as possible. Ah, yeah, be careful what you wish for. But regardless, you can really tell the filmmakers took their Empire Strikes Back pills, as it does feel like X2 follows that template, as we see these characters grow, and we care about them even more, with all the glossy special effects and action set pieces now being a byproduct of the character drama element, not the other way round. It turns up the stakes and makes you really care for these characters, and get engulfed in their journey. X-Men 2 basically takes what was done with the first movie and builds on it and improves it, turning what was a fun franchise into an absolutely gripping one and compelling one. And I think it's definitely the best X-Men movie thus far. And some would probably even say that it's one of the best superhero movies ever. But above all, considering X-Men is a story about superhuman mutants, what X-Men 2 does is manage to create a thoughtful and engaging adventure, which is actually very human. I think the human element is that X-Men does deal with persecution by discrimination, which I think is something that most people can relate to, as it's something that most people have had to face at some time in their lives. But X-Men 2 takes this story and tells it in spades, flawlessly. I actually really love the first two movies. When looking back upon the original X-Men trilogy, my perception goes a little something like this. The power of one, the power of two, the power of shitty. Anyway, I'm Minty, and never forget that time in 2003 when the X-Men cinematic universe was on top of its game. See ya!